Outgoing Senator Arthur Sinodinos has called on MPs to act on the best science when it comes to climate change. The Liberal senator heading to Washington to become Australia's next ambassador to the US. In his valedictory speech last night, Senator Sinodinos told the chamber policymakers must take advice from scientists on how to respond to global warming.
When it comes to climate change, policymakers have to act on the basis of the best scientific evidence available. We rely on the intelligence agencies to give us their best advice on security threats, and of course final decisions always rest with us as the elected representatives. The same model should apply to climate matters and almost everything else impinging on our health and the natural world. We should keep our options open on nuclear energy, but that raises a host of broader issues I dare not go into here.
There was a great range of issues that he spoke about in that speech, China included, and joining me now is Liberal Senator Arthur Sinodinos, who, as I said, is the next Australian ambassador to the US. Senator, good morning. Thanks very much for joining us. So, you've been at the coalface. You've been at the coalface of Australian politics for the best part of 40 years. Is it a heavy heart today? You know, how do you reflect on those years?
Look, I don't think it's with a heavy heart. It's probably with a bit of a sense of relief in a way. Look, I've enjoyed it. I went into politics because I love news, current affairs, politics itself. I liked being involved in political and policy advising. I didn't grow up actually dreaming of being a politician, but sort of the route I've taken has sort of led me in that direction. And then people said to me a few years ago, well, why don't you try your hand in the parliament? And after a stint in the private sector, I decided to do that. But this is the time to turn the page. I've had a good run in this place. I've been treated pretty well, really, all things considered. And, you know, I've had the odd health episode lately, Pete, as you may recall. So I've just decided this is a good time to turn the page and to do something that we can also do as a family as a whole.
It is incredible, given that you've had, as you mentioned there, such personal problems to get through and to battle on is just an incredible feat, in my opinion. Just back onto your speech, though, you referred to Scott Morrison as the most complete politician of his generation. Given you are such a staunch ally of Malcolm Turnbull, does Scott Morrison, has his performance surprised you?
His application to the job has not surprised me. I mean, until we actually won the election, I guess there are a lot of people thinking, well, how's this all going to go? But the thing about Scott is from the day he got the job, he knew exactly what he had to do. He had to go out there and define himself in the public mind before Labor defined him in a negative way. And the other thing that happened, and I've been doing this review of the Liberal Party performance in the last campaign, what's clear is that for 12 months before the election, Andrew Hurst and his team at Central Headquarters were actually doing a lot of work to put the building blocks together. But Scott came along, developed this persona, focused on his key message, which was the economy, and that everything flows from a strong economy, including our capacity to fund essential services. And he stuck to that message, and the rest of the campaign was built around that. And also, obviously, we fed off some of the negatives about Bill Shorten and his tax agenda, and we were off to the races. All right,
you're heading off to the US to be our ambassador. You're going to be filling some pretty big shoes with Joe Hockey departing. Before we get to Joe, I just want to ask you about Donald Trump. You're going to have to deal with him in quite a close way. Just on the economy, Trump has said in his inaugural speech, we must protect borders from ravages of other countries. Protection will lead to great prosperity. Senator, you've said, well, protection stops you from being lean and leads to unproductive action. So there is a difference of opinion there. Do you have any problem with telling the president that you have a differing opinion? Because, I mean, Scott Morrison has come in for a bit of heat lately saying that he's too close to the president.
No, I don't think the two options are mutually exclusive. What I've talked about and what we've talked about as a government is that for Australia, and particularly here in the Asia-Pacific, our future lies in having the best possible rules-based order which promotes trade and investment. What Donald Trump has been talking about in part is that for a long time, if you like, the US has overseen the development of this world order, and there have been some parts of the US which feel left behind. And what he's been trying to do is address the concerns of those people by saying, well, I'm going to take actions to make sure that trade is fair and that where we've been disadvantaged as a country, the US, we will take action to remediate that. And of course, that's led to some of the actions we've seen in relation to China. What we've been saying as a country is a lot of these disputes, where possible, and we want to see them resolved, should be resolved through mechanisms like the World Trade Organization, so that we can do it in a way that's transparent and which benefits the global economy as a whole.
Joe Hockey famously got in with Donald Trump early at the last election before he became president, and you know it has served him well and it's served us well in terms of us being an ally with the United States. What do you do now, Senator? Do you get in there and do you try and get straight in with the Democrats just in case they win the next election?
Well, I think the first thing to say is that there's a very strong relationship between the Prime Minister and the President, and that makes the job of the ambassador easier because they know each other, they trust each other. It is an election year next year, and of course there's an election for the administration, there's an election for the Congress. And it is important to understand key players on both sides because we also are affected by legislation that goes through the Congress, and that's voted on by Republicans and Democrats. But in my job, I'll be doing everything I can to respect the mandate of the elected government, the Trump administration, while also building, I hope, constructive relationships with other key players that affect our national interest. I'm not there to be a barracker for one side or other of American politics. I'm there to represent Australia's national interest.
How's your golf game?
Not very good. I haven't played in a long time, actually, but I'm not a great golfer, but maybe that'll benefit with the president. We'll see. What
about tennis, then?
Yeah. No, I've been a regular tennis player.
All right.
And we've got a great tennis court there, so we've got to make sure that's looked after. And around Washington, I think that's a bit of a point of attraction in dealing with the Australian embassy.
You're going to need some FaceTime with Donald Trump, so perhaps that's the game to play with him. Hey, just finally, Senator, have you spoken to Joe Hockey? Has he given you any advice yet?
Yeah. I've had several meetings with Joe while he's been out here, as well as speaking on the phone. Look, I think the best advice that Joe has given me is that in dealing with the administration and dealing with the Americans, always keep in mind that we come to this with a history of a long association, that mateship that's developed over a very long period, the shared sacrifice in war, and that Americans understand that when we speak to them or give advice behind the scenes, we're doing it from a position of trust and from a position of very common interests.
That is good advice. Senator Arthur Sinodinos, well done on your speech last night, and well done on your career as a politician, and also moving forward to the US. Such a busy time for you, so thanks very much for joining us today.
And thanks to both of you there. You're doing a great job. Good on you.